Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. Sam, it's been a while since we've been together on a podcast.
Wow,
man.
What is this podcast?
I almost had to remove your picture off the picture behind us.
I know.
Sitting between us, we have a very special guest with us. She's a CrossFit Bison member, but also what I'm really intrigued by, she's an elite level Hyrox athlete. Alandra Greenlee. Alandra, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend to come sit and talk fitness with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, and Alandra has been with Bison just for a few months. She did try it, I want to say a year prior, if I remember correctly. You came in and destroyed a running workout. Didn't hear from you for a while, and now she comes in this past spring, and she's been coming in 4 or 5, maybe even sometimes 6 days a week and training with us. And from my coach perspective, and with the amount of experience that I have, I can watch someone work out a few times and just be like, okay, she has it. You know, she's just good strength, good at running, good at conditioning, a lot of mental toughness, a lot of dedication. You can watch her move and know that she really is a disciplined person here, in and out of the gym. And she's been training a long time. I could just tell, no matter what she is. But I honestly don't know much about her. And I'm really intrigued to get to know her more. But also, you know, the primary focus of today's podcast is Hyrox. And Hyrox is a growing trend in the fitness industry that I am hearing and seeing more and more, I want to say every month. Like, I can remember when I first saw it, I said, cool. And then the next year, I'm like, this is kind of interesting. And now, right now, I'm like really intrigued to the point where I have athletes here at Bison signing up for them in other countries. They're going to travel to another country and do this kind of race. So I can also see that there are some CrossFit Games athletes that have signed up for a few and done really well. Hyrox, their top male, Hunter McIntyre, actually competed at the CrossFit Games one year when they let everyone in. And just kidding. So the reason I want to do this, there's a connection there. I just feel like there's a relationship between Hyrox and CrossFit, and I really want to dive into someone that has done it for a while and also at an elite level. By definition of Hyrox, Alandra is an elite level athlete in Hyrox. So before we dive into that, can you kind of just open the door a little bit to who you are, just background with sports and fitness, and what really kind of brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a great intro about Hyrox and everything.
Good.
So as far as my background, I grew up as a swimmer, like ever since elementary school, competitively swimming throughout the summers and up until high school. In college, once I got there, I decided not to swim anymore. I was like, oh, I don't want to be an athlete. I'm here to, move on with life. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is there to life after you're not doing anything? You've been doing these sports for so long. At that point, I joined fencing, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of like a step out of the box. It was a great way to meet new people, work on like high-level skills, I guess. They call it physical chess. So I did that through college. And then after college in med school, I got into like some more endurance type of things, mostly half marathons. I think I didn't do a marathon until after med school. But yeah, just generally trying to stay in shape during that time when you're sitting and studying all the time.
Right.
Looking back, I kind of wish I started CrossFit during that time, but yeah, here I am.
Yep. When did you actually start CrossFit? Do you remember approximately?
Yeah, exactly when I started and why I started. So I started CrossFit in 2017 when I first moved to New Jersey, starting my residency here. It's like, so this is like the same situation coming to college. I don't have any sports. I'm only going to know people inside of the hospital. I need to meet people someplace else. So started in 2017. I was like, hey, this is great. It's like a 1-hour workout and I'll get it done, go to work or do this after work
and also connect with some people. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's like a knock 2 birds out with one stone. So 2017, it's impressive. Sam, you've coached Alandra, just like, because we're both morning coaches.
Yeah.
And it surprised me. I thought she was going to say she started CrossFit a lot sooner than that. She's a pretty high-level athlete for someone that started 2017.
Yeah, she moves really well. You move well. The only thing I would beat you up over.
What are you going to say?
Just full cleans, Olympic lifting. Like, you power everything. You will power everything till the cows come home. And you can go heavy with that. But anytime, and it makes sense because, like you are really strong, but it's not like you care as a Hyrox athlete or as a competitive athlete in the kind of things that you do. Like, you're not an Oli person. So you're like, you know what? If I can just like get, why do I have to squat deeper? It's a classic CrossFit thing anyway. Like, you can try to get 20 of our athletes to do that. And
Yeah, they can power more than they can
they
squat.
can always power more than and we talked about that with Dan Dodd, right? Like, that's a classic CrossFit thing.
So that's a great kind of lead into what I think the draw to Hyrox is Alandra is a really high-level fitness athlete with a background in multiple different training-related activities. And she works hard. She's got unbelievable power, great endurance. But yes, if you said, hey, there's a weakness to her CrossFit game, maybe it's full Olympic lifting, squat snatch, split jerks. And that's where it doesn't matter at Hyrox. You could still train it at a high level, but it'll transfer over to be a competitive Hyrox athlete. So let me ask you this before we get into the Hyrox. After you started, and I'm sure that you kind of hit the ground running with CrossFit back in 2017, did you start to look into the competitive side of it at all and kind of be drawn in by it?
The competitive side of CrossFit?
Yep.
Honestly, no. I was really busy with residency. I was just doing CrossFit to stay in shape and kind of work on skills and meet people. I kind of still see CrossFit as that way, let it train you for life and whatever else you want to do.
Awesome.
I did not do or even look into a CrossFit competition until a year after residency, so 4 years in.
So to that 2021, after the pandemic, sometime after that. And how many times have you competed?
Since then, in CrossFit competition?
Yeah, CrossFit, yeah.
Probably like 4 or 5.
Okay, cool. Like individual, team, partner?
Yeah, partner and individual.
Cool, that's awesome. So where does Hyrox come in chronologically? When did you actually do your first race?
So this was all during the pandemic era. I had heard about CrossFit. I think it was in 2020. Somebody at the gym mentioned to me, they're like, hey, look at this event. These are all of the things that you're good at. And there's no Olympic lifting. You'd probably be really good at this. I was like, oh, wow, that looks kind of cool. I looked at their website and, saw there were some events coming up. But then I think like the New York one got canceled. And it just kind of like fell on the back burner at that point in time. And then I think it was in 2022, around then that it came back to New York City and I signed up, and that's kind of when things went really, really fast as far as on the Hyrox scene.
And your first experience, can you remember the emotions of going into it during and after? Like, did you immediately get sucked in and be like, dude, I want to do this again. I want to push my body to the point where see how far I can get into this? Was it like a right away, love at first sight?
I think that first race was really, really interesting. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I was mostly focused on like, what kind of shoes do I wear for like this? I was like weighing my running shoes and my like lifting shoes. I'm like, I don't really know what to do about this. I didn't know anybody else nobody in my gym was at that point I was interested in it or had ever even heard of it. And everybody was like, no, that doesn't sound like fun. I'm not going to do it. So I was the only person. I just went there that day and did it. That was a very interesting experience. The way that the season worked at that point in time is if you did a regular season race and you got one of the top 15 times for the season, you qualified for the Elite 15 in the World Championships. So at that point in time, I think it was like March 2022. It was very late in the season. And I broke in with like a number 7 or something time into the Elite 15. Wow. So right at that event, it was kind of like a breakthrough performance. I was like, oh my gosh, who is this person?
Yeah, it's awesome.
And that was really, really exciting. And so the World Championships, I think there were a few more races left that people could qualify, were a few months later. They were in May, I think, in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And so I was really excited about it. I was all gung-ho, and it was cool because I hadn't really like trained specifically because I was doing CrossFit, and my CrossFit gym didn't do any Hyrox programming or anything like that. So it was really exciting, and I was, and kind of still am all in.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's what I kind of want to dive into. And again, Alandra is not a Hyrox spokesperson, right? Like, we're going to ask her a few questions about the race, and I have the website up in front of me. There are different levels to this. I think what we want people to know, it's similar to CrossFit in that there's like a scaled and RX, right? There's partner, there's individual, there's elite, which you have to qualify for via performance. You can't just go sign up for elite. Just like you can't sign up for semifinals in CrossFit or the games. You have to qualify.
For the people who don't know what it actually is, do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah. So basically, it's a race that it's a very structured, you know what the events are, you know what the distances are, and everything, unlike CrossFit, is planned and the same no matter where you are. Yes, different temperatures and different climates can change different things, but basically you know what you're signing up for when you sign up for a Hyrox race. And I'm going to give, I don't want to throw the weights in yet. I'm going to throw in the movements. It's a lot of running, by the way. Okay. So CrossFitters, just hold on to something. Okay. All right. But here's the race. 3, 2, 1, go. 1 kilometer run, 1,000-meter ski, and then kilometer. So basically, I don't want to go through this. I'm going to say it's a bunch of 1 kilometer runs, 8 of them, right? After every run, there's a workout station. So here are the stations. Ski Erg, 1,000-meter Ski Erg, a sled push, a sled pull, burpee broad jump, 1,000-meter row, kettlebell farmer carries, sandbag lunges, and wall balls. So all of those stations that I just threw out at you, right before them is a 1 kilometer run. So yes, there are 8 different 1 kilometer runs. I think that comes out to, that's a 5K.
6 miles.
Just under 6 miles of running. So these races, how long does this take? I mean, you're looking at the best in the world. It's about an hour. Maybe I think a few people break under an hour, right? Mm-hmm. I know a friend of mine in the CrossFit world that did not train for it. I think it took him an hour and a half. And I'm sure there's some people that go even closer to hour 45 minutes, 2 hours. Yep. So it's for CrossFit. This is not a Fran. This is not a short, intense workout. But the similarity of it is that there are strengths and weaknesses according to every athlete. Like I'm sure some athletes can crush the machines, but they get crushed by the burpee broad jumps. And I'm looking at this from a programming perspective. This is a really versatile workout. You know, this is not small guy centered. It's not big guy centered. I do think probably some strength and some size can help, but guess what? You're running almost 6 miles. So that's where this comes into. That's why it's really interesting to me that the best programming in the world when it comes to a fitness race or a CrossFit competition, you don't favor big, you don't favor small. You kind of have to be the jack of all trades and not be a specialist. And I think that's kind of where I get tied into CrossFit here. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you go through these movements and you train specifically for this, or do you just do CrossFit and hope that kind of gets you to a higher level of competing here?
Yeah, so I mean, that is a fantastic question. I think different athletes have taken different approaches when it comes to preparing for Hyrox. For me specifically, I like CrossFit because I like the training. I like working on different things. I like working on my weaknesses, Olympic lifting sometimes. And I think that is a really good foundation to prepare for Hyrox. And that's kind of what I've always done. I value fitness as adding to your life, not becoming your life. Mm-hmm. So that's my approach. Other people take different approaches where they're, 100% Hyrox. They're not going to go to a CrossFit gym and do a CrossFit class or anything like that. They're very focused on those movements specifically, and they become very, very specialized in that and like specifically running. There's also an emergence of a lot of Hyrox specific programming. I think there's a new like Hyrox 365 programming thing, which is kind of like the CrossFit like email that they send with the workout every single day. I think. Okay. I haven't really looked into it.
Cool.
So yeah, there's a lot of different approaches.
Yeah, I actually know of a CrossFit gym that we have a relationship with. They actually started they're experimenting with a Hyrox class twice a week. I think it's like 7 p.m., like last class of the day. Hey, if you want to get into this, you're not going to come in and do Isabel, 30 snatches for time. We're instead going to do some sled pushes and a lot of running and some sled pulls. Hey, next week we're going to go after the wall balls and the farmer carries sandbag lunge kind of thing. And I do think, are there actual Hyrox gyms yet where people just go there to train for Hyrox? Do you know if that exists?
Well, I think that at least from my knowledge, they are all somewhat affiliated or like have some other type of programming. Not like, hey, we're just a Hyrox, or just a Hyrox gym.
You can pay for a Hyrox affiliation at your gym.
You can?
Yes.
Okay.
And gyms will pay a yearly affiliation fee to become a Hyrox training center.
Okay.
And right now there are about 2,500 of those.
All right, so it's sizable. Yeah. That's notable. That's
but
interesting.
A lot of them are CrossFit gyms.
Yeah.
And they just pick up that affiliation.
Add on to it.
That's right.
Interesting. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of CrossFit gyms go to. If they're A, struggling, or B, just want to switch it up. Now, the divisions, right? I think this is a common question because a few people from the gym have asked me. I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't know the answer, so I had to look into it myself. There are divisions. There's open, there's pro, there's doubles, and there's relay. So open is what I would consider, tell me if I'm wrong, Alandra, this would be good for, hey, this is my first race. I've never done this before. I don't know if I can move all the weights. It's pretty inclusive. You know, obviously the weights get heavier as you go. But I mean, common question, could anyone sign up for that? Or is there still some strength needed for some of this stuff?
Yeah, so Hyrox kind of brands itself as like fitness for every body. And I think that, you know, there's some truth to that. And there's also some, like, not truth to that, but so, you know, there's the same amount of running in each one of these races.
And divisions.
Unless you're in the, relay or...
Got it.
So I think that, you know, people can go in for the open and it's doable. It's a good place to start, but sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, here's a question. While you get that back,
Yeah.
if I sign up and I can't do one of the stations, like I can't do the sled push, what is there a penalty? Like, can I skip it and take a penalty? Or you just had to, your race is over?
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting question. They recently implemented like some penalty or something, like if you couldn't complete a station or say like you only do a few laps of something or something like that. I didn't look specifically into it.
Yeah.
Try to do all of them.
Yes.
But, or, you know, like it can get confusing out there when you're like running so many laps and then you go to this station and then that one over there. So it can be a mistake. But I think like nobody goes into a race like, oh yeah, I'm just going to take the penalty for that and, you know, move on.
Right. Like you almost have to, like you have to make the penalty big enough that you can't just go run 6 miles and get a time. Like the penalties have to be so bad that you might as well just go do it, even if it's really slow. The schematics, do you have a judge with you the whole time?
You don't. Not unless you're in one of the elite races and you know, the larger events, like the majors as they call it. But there are judges at each station and they're, you know, kind of counting your laps and trying to like guide you as like what you're supposed to do and everything and monitoring everything. It is definitely a lot less, or it's kind of like, I guess, you know, based on athletes being honest with what they're doing, whether your knee is touching the ground every sandbag lunge.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and like I'm trying to think about the movements. Like 1,000-meter ski erg, you're not going to get off the thing until it says 1,000. 1,000-meter row, you're not going to get off until it says 1,000. But a burpee broad jump, you know, can you do the burpee broad jump, shuffle a few steps? Yeah. So here we go. Let's find this tie between CrossFit and Hyrox, right? Judging is a huge talking point in CrossFit. No reps and judges that are too strict, judges that are not strict enough. If I'm going to go sign up for a race and I'm going in seeing red and I want to beat people and I want to compete in this, I want to qualify for the elite, you know, do you hear this in Hyrox? Like, hey, that person did not beat me. They cheated on their burpee broad jumps. They took 3 steps before they went back down. Their knee was not touching on the lunges. They were not squatting on the wall balls. They did not hit the target. You know, it's like I feel like I'm talking to the 6 a.m. class on Monday. Where has that accountability level improved? Do you see more room for improvement? Should they be putting a lot more attention on this if they want to gain credibility?
I honestly think all of the people that are looking to qualify for the Elite 15 or, you know, higher level, they're that type of athlete that's going to be honest with what they're doing and their efforts, and at least not intentionally be trying to cheat, but maybe I'm just, you know, giving them benefit of the doubt.
Right.
You definitely see some questionable burpee broad jumps where, you know, there's this move where you like jump forward while you're going down, and you'll see videos or like when they live stream everything and they're like, did everybody see that? Like, come on, that's not okay.
Right.
But there's no like real penalty for anything like that. I haven't seen anything be like, oh, this person shouldn't even be in this race. Personally, I haven't seen that.
Okay. Sam, any thoughts on that? Just because to me, gaining credibility on a worldwide test of fitness, at the end of the day, people often want to win more than they want to do it with integrity, especially when they're in this social media era of, hey, I get attention and sponsors if I go win something.
I mean, if you look at the 8 stations, like you said, Ski Erg, can't cheat.
Yep.
Sled push, hard to cheat. Sled pull, hard to cheat. Burpee broad jump, maybe, like you said, technique-wise. Rowing, can't cheat. Farmer carry, also hard to cheat. Sandbag walking lunges, I don't know. And then wall ball. So there's only a couple movements where you could sort of skirt the standards, and they are the same events every time.
Right.
So you get pretty good at sort of fixing these standards. The problem is in the CrossFit world, there are so many different movements.
Yeah.
Every movement's different. Every year there's such a variety of movements, and then they work on those standards. So I don't think Hyrox has as much of an issue in terms of judging issues. If anyone is like really beyond the standard, it's gonna come out pretty quick.
Right.
You can't just keep doing that. Like especially, I mean, again, the community type of workouts are not so much of an issue, but when you get to the pro, like the men's pro, elite pro, like forget it. They're not like, you can't really cheat those kind of things.
Wall balls. When you get there, is there a judge? Is there a counter for all of you at that point? Is that one?
We have an individual.
Okay, because every time I've seen there's always a judge there looking at your squat, looking at your target. And now I see that there's some technology where not all the stations have it yet. My guess is it's an experiment where there's a digital like counter in front of you as you're doing your wall balls. And if the ball hits the target where it's supposed to, it counts. But if it doesn't, you don't get the rep.
Yeah, so that's a new thing. I think they implemented that at the World Championships. I think they had something very similar to that a few years ago, but it wasn't accurate, and there were some faulty issues. And that also, again, happened at the World Championships. So I don't know if that number is triggered by the judge, or if it's actually that the ball hitting the target.
Okay. Yeah, because that was so. Like I'm just like such a logistical guy. If I'm in a race and I get to the wall balls and like I'm ahead of a guy or I'm trying to catch a guy, there's going to be someone there for me, right, to count my wall balls. Like that's kind of like one of the things. No matter what, there's going to be someone there. Then you go off into the finish line.
Whether you agree with their count or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, that's human error. Baseball, football, CrossFit, Hyrox, when you have humans doing the judging and counting, I mean, that's why baseball, a big talking point right now is to get rid of umpires and do everything digital with the technology they have. But I don't know. I think to me there's some value in having that human element to it. I do think that's a big part of sports. Now, making it to the elite level, I just want to kind of touch on that again because I'm kind of reading it as we go, and I've read a little bit. Now, you have to have one of the top 15 scores worldwide all year to be an Elite 15, or is that by region?
So
Age?
They recently changed the way that the season runs, and I don't know if this is going to be the same for the next or this upcoming season, but they most recently implemented a variety, or I think there are 4 or 5 major Hyrox events. So these were considered like the majors.
Yeah.
I think they like baseball terms. And
Yep.
so to be in the Elite 15 in the majors, you had to have one of the top 15 times for the season. And to qualify for the World Championships, you had to compete in one of the majors and get one of the top places. And there was like roll downs and all of these.
Got it. Okay, that makes more sense. If I fail to get, I mean, if I have the funds and the time, if I fail to get it at this region, can I go to another region and go sign up for another race?
So I don't go to all of them.
Okay, so I can go to all of them, hoping that I get one of the top 15 scores and qualify for the World Championships.
Well, you could qualify at one of the majors. If they have like the appropriate divisions, there's open and the pro.
Yep.
But they do have the other events that are not majors, but you can qualify at one of those.
Okay.
So you don't have to go to just specifically the majors. You can qualify in any one of those.
Got it.
So
Okay.
Dave is planning his career now as an elite Hyrox athlete. He's like, how many do I have to compete and what do I have to do to
How
get
much
to?
money do I need to do?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So how much do I have to run? All right, I'm out. So there's men, there's women. Are there age groups involved in this yet, or is there not enough demand? I mean, I think CrossFit might do away with age groups at some point. I hope they don't, but I think it could happen just because the funding that needs to be there. Are there age groups at all, or is it just men and women?
So in the Elite 15, there's no age groups, but in the regular divisions, there are age groups.
So you can go there and be like, hey, I'm the fittest 35 to 39-year-old. Did they do it by 5 years or 10 years? Do you know?
I believe it is by 5 years. And even at like New York City, there was, I think, like 70-year-old people competing.
Oh,
in this.
nice.
It was
That's awesome.
Incredible.
That's pretty cool. That's again, another parallel to CrossFit. It's like, it's all different levels, but you're all going after the same stimulus. Doesn't really matter if you're 58 minutes or you're at hour 58. And especially if you're 31 years old or 71 years old, you're pursuing the same thing. It really does probably bring a community feel. Touch on that a little bit. What is the Hyrox community like, if there is one? Because CrossFit, everyone comes here to do CrossFit. It's kind of easy to be in that crowd. But Alandra, you're the only Hyrox athlete in our gym. Is there so far? Yes, so far. Is there a virtual Hyrox community?
Yeah. So I think that people have different experiences when it comes to Hyrox. There's definitely some gyms where people are very into Hyrox. Everyone's like, oh, we're all training. We're all going to this event. This is what we do. My experience has been nobody's interested in doing it with me. I have not gotten a single person to be interested until I left the gym, and then now they're into Hyrox. So I actually connected a lot with people virtually, like on Instagram, and I've met, some really good friends. We talk about workouts, we share everything, talk about like different events. I've done partner Hyrox with them. So it's kind of been more like global or international or nationally meeting people. But I think that Hyrox is kind of exploding here in the U.S. So many more people are interested in it, or even like asking questions about it. So I think that that's going to definitely change.
It started in Germany, so it's huge in Europe right now.
Huge. There's so many. The events there are insane.
Right. Yeah. And since you've sort of been one of the early high-achieving athletes in Hyrox here, obviously you've had a lot of notoriety as it's been growing in the United States. And I know the last couple events in the United States have sold out very quickly. And it looks like they're actually poised to be really popular in the United States. I mean, Time magazine mentioned that they're one of the 100 most influential companies this year. Chris Hemsworth's company Center is now their big sponsor for equipment. They've been selling out all of their events within minutes, like a half hour or so. So I know that there's always a lot of concern in CrossFit about the sky is falling. We have to deal with Orange Theory and F45, and now we got to deal with this. And the more I look at it, the more I feel like it's not the same. Like, Hyrox is a fitness competition, and like you said, CrossFit is a training methodology. It's a way of training. So there are, like you said, not a ton of Hyrox gyms, but there are gyms that do long Metcons and Hyrox specific type of training, but it's just like there's no running gyms. Like, there are no marathon gyms out there.
Right.
So if you're training a marathon, you just go and you train at gyms to help you become a better, or even a triathlon gym, for example. Like, there are no gyms that do that.
Right.
But you can find programming that help you with that. And I think if CrossFit does well, they can help each other in a certain way. I know Hyrox is kind of really standoffish. They want to be very separate from CrossFit in some ways, but I think it's synergistic in some ways. And I do think if you are a really good runner, you like grinding, you don't mind an hour and a half workout, then it's a really good competition. And I think for all the people, and we have a lot of athletes who are former you're a triathlon type person. You've done DECA, you've done all sorts of other kind of endurance / high level competitive type of sport training and competing. Like, this is a very fun sort of way of sort of testing your athletic capacity in a relatively safe way. I know a lot of triathletes who are here now, and they love CrossFit, and they use that as some of their base, and then they go out and compete. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of Hyrox athletes too.
Mm-hmm.
So where is your what is your best advice for training for it? If I sign up, or we have someone that already signed up, what is Alandra's advice to, hey, you should do X, Y, Z to properly prep yourself for this, both for your race, but what if it's something she wants to do long term? Is it really the aerobic capacity, running? Is that the foundation of it, do you think?
So that definitely depends on where your background is. Like, if you're a CrossFitter and you like never run or anything, like, well, not say CrossFitters never run, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Then that's definitely going to be something that you need to work on. In general, I think that it's not just the running that you need to do, but what I think they like coined the term like compromised running. So you need to run, and then you need to be able to push a heavy sled. You need to run and then do 100 wall balls after running over 5 miles, and doing all of this other stuff. So, like, doing workouts like that, where your legs are not going to feel good after doing those sandbag lunges and then getting in for a 1,000 meter run.
Mm-hmm. So,
getting used to that feeling.
Coming from the CrossFit coach and owner, is CrossFit the best way to train for it on a macro level? I know there's probably some specifics you have to really train, because we don't do sled pushes here, sled pulls. Do you think CrossFit is the best way to train day to day, but then you're going to have to kind of accessorize and supplement around that?
I think broadly speaking, CrossFit training is, if you're looking for something, the best way to do it, because you're working on so many different things and there's a lot of variation. One could argue something like Orange Theory, you're getting longer workouts and you're doing like the rowing, that is like, You are, but you're not getting that intensity. You're not working on specific strength. And forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I don't really do Orange Theory, but that I've gone to a couple classes.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing like 1 rep max squats or
Right. I believe that's the case, but I don't want one of them to come down on me saying you guys don't even know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure they don't have like weightlifting racks and that don't do Olympic lifting. There's a lot of carryover, right? A lot of carryover to what you would do on a 15-minute AMRAP here at Bison or at any CrossFit. It might not improve your running, which is such a huge part of your Hyrox score, but what it will do is train certain movement patterns and muscle groups. Here's an example. Reno said that he got better at biking and distance running after he started CrossFit tenfold just because he became a more powerful athlete. Every step was more powerful than the previous. So yes, to become a better runner, you have to run. But there are things that you can do outside of running to get you better at that.
How many of, when you're competing at the elite level, are those athletes have a CrossFit background? I saw Lauren Weeks, Hunter McIntyre, Mal O'Brien, like a fair number of these former CrossFit. Chris Henshaw's a huge CrossFit coach, also Hyrox coach now. So what percentage would you say have some sort of CrossFit background when you're competing at that level?
At the elite level, now that I'm like kind of thinking about it, very few of them, I think, come from a CrossFit background.
Okay.
Maybe, for the elite 15, so elite 30, maybe 5 or 10.
Okay.
I mean,
about
that's a safe estimate, probably less than that.
And where are the rest of them coming from? Like other endurance type sport?
Yeah, running, just kind of like group fitness classes. I don't know everybody's background I'm thinking about, but the people that I'm thinking of.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I would guess, my guess would be a lot of them have some sort of endurance background, but then they got into moving weight somehow. Could be bodybuilding, weightlifting, group fitness. Now, how many races do you do per year?
I have done probably up to 3 or 4 per year. So some of those are going to include the partner competitions, partner ones that I've done.
Cool.
So I think I've done like 13 or 14 races total.
Okay. Approximately how much do they cost? Is it different? Because I want to get into some of that. That's a big deal for some.
Yeah, it is pretty expensive. I think it's $135 or $185 or something.
Okay, so somewhere in that range, which is a little bit more expensive than your typical CrossFit competition, but doesn't blow it out. Like most CrossFit competitions are between $90 and $100, right? So this is a little extra. One issue with this is in most cases there's not a lot of them, meaning they're not every weekend. And you normally have to travel to a very big city to get there. Now, there was recently one in New York. But if I want to stay local on it, I essentially have to wait till next year to do that. Like I can't do it in the fall. I can't do it in the winter. If I wanted to do one, which I did, I looked into one because someone else from the gym asked me. And there's one like in Toronto in October. Or there was one I almost signed up for one in Birmingham. And then I realized it was in Europe.
Birmingham, England. Yes.
Yeah, I literally was like, ooh, Alabama Crimson Tide. They're playing against Missouri that Saturday night. Ash, maybe we could go to both. And then that ended up not being the right. So that's one thing because that's an investment too. Like if I want to go sign up for one and I want to do one, I don't want to wait till next June for New York. I'm going to go to Toronto. I got to get a flight. I got to get a hotel. And you're probably looking at between $600 and $1,000. If you really want to kind of cheap it and drive and maybe get a cheaper hotel, fine. But again, you're a performing athlete at this point, so you have to think about that. Like when I go to Legends, it's a $2,000 to $3,000 investment every time. So
it's like running the New York City Marathon, Boston Marathon, Chicago Marathon. Like they're kind of marquee events, and there aren't that many kind of local. It's not like a 5K where like Midland Park has one.
Right.
It's like it also takes a lot of equipment for these guys, and they have to run it through like a lot of people through all those stations.
Logistically, is it ever a mess? Like, do you ever get to a station and be like, "There's no sled for me," or "There's no kettlebells for me"? Like, do they stagger the start? Like, what happens there?
Yeah, so they do stagger the start. I have never had that happen, but I have heard of people have that happen to them, which is very frustrating.
My former coach Toronto, did the one in New York.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And I didn't get the story from him, but he said that he had a logistical error that he made, like a wrong turn or something, and it costed him like almost like, I think 7-8 minutes. Like he was just running in the wrong direction or did something weird. It was his own personal error, he said. Is it tough? Like, can you easily get lost in this thing?
It is. And if you get race brain and you get confused, you can't, like, you lose count of your laps. And they do have a board that's supposed to help you, but I don't trust that because a lot of times it's not working. And New York didn't work, didn't count me at all.
You have to count your own laps.
You technically, yes, you do, but they say that it's up there. Don't trust that thing.
Okay.
Figure out a way to count your own laps. And the lap number is going to be different at every single venue. And then you have to remember which station you're going to be going into. Best thing, probably just write it on your arm.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But, you know, they do, in theory, have all of that out for you. It's not supposed to be too difficult, but you can get very confused. And especially if it's hot like New York City was, like, that was a disaster.
Do you wear a time chip?
You do.
Okay. Because I saw that one of the things that's really cool about this, because CrossFitters, fitness people in general, we like information, we like data about ourselves, right? Our splits. And they can give you splits of every run and splits of every station. So, and your rank within that station. So it's great. It's like tying to CrossFit, like, ooh, I crushed this event. I got crushed in this event, competitively speaking. That's where I need to put a lot of my attention on for my next race. Have you looked at that kind of stuff and kind of curtailed your training leading up to it all? Like, hey, I am a really good runner, competitively speaking, and you're great on the machines too. You know, but oh, hey, that the sandbag lunge and the wall balls I got crushed on, like that, I'm gonna really kind of focus on that training for my next race. Do you take that kind of information and apply that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see, you know, oh, I was like second or third on this station, and then, oh, wow, I got last on that one. That didn't go very well. Got to figure out what happened there. And I'll look at my time compared to the other time. I'm like, how did they even do that? Like, I'm looking at the video. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what was I thinking?
Is there a live feed?
A lot of the events do have live feeds, at least for the Elite 15. And there's usually some like posting going on, or you'll have like somebody there recording you. Maybe.
Is there a certain type of body that sort of lends itself to Hyrox, say, versus CrossFit? Because we all can see, like, elite CrossFit athletes, they're pretty short, most of them. And, you know, now it's a lot of strength. Like, you really need a lot of strength to be able to compete at a high level at CrossFit. Like, what kind of body types sort of lend themselves to Hyrox? I would imagine you have to be a good runner, which means you need relatively long strides, also the rowing and so forth. What else would help you if you were looking for an ideal body type for Hyrox?
I think that it is going to be somebody that's like mildly on the taller side, or at least not on the shorter side. They have long legs. They're able to run. And then they're also moderately strong. It's not, a 400-pound deadlift or anything like that, but you need to be able to put muscle on that frame and build the muscle to be able to move everything. So I would say, in general, my perception, somebody, higher than the elite level in CrossFit, taller, and they're a good runner, but they're able to build muscle.
And then what kind of shoes do you wear?
So let's preface this with Alandra is a foot and ankle surgeon. So her background is a great person to ask this question, A, for Hyrox, but B, for CrossFit. We've been asked the shoe question thousands of times over the years, and it is always going to come down to personal preference. You can't give general advice. You're not giving medical advice on the podcast, but what is your view on footwear for Hyrox? And maybe this could tie into CrossFit as well.
So it's actually kind of a funny story behind that. So my first Hyrox, like I said, I was like weighing my shoes and like, which ones do I wear? Like literally, I had them on a scale. I'm like, okay, I want to be able to run with these. I have these CrossFit shoes. I have these running shoes. Like, but I wanted to be able to like push the sled. And so I ended up wearing my no bowls for that. And people are like, what is this girl? She's like wearing no bowls. And I was like, well, I run in CrossFit workouts wearing this. Like, I don't know, why not? And I wasn't really concerned about the running. I was more worried about the stations. So that was great. But then I think at some of the venues, they're on very hard cement. And like that really takes its toll. Like I'm mile 4. So I was like, maybe I want to try something with a little bit more cushioning, a little bit more optimized for running, but still has like a good grip. So the shoes that I typically wear are Brooks Ghost. Or Brooks Hyperion, or the Glycerin. Those 3 ones are the ones that I like. The most popular one that like everybody's really going to in Hyrox right now is, I think, at the Saucony, I don't know how to pronounce that, Endorphin Pro, which is like a carbon fiber plate. They're super high, like stack height. I can't balance on those. Like in the row, you're like rolling, and the like sandbag lunges. It doesn't work for me with wall balls. Like the end of the race, I'm dizzy and hot already, and then I'm just like can't even stand up straight. So I didn't think that those worked out very well for me, but a lot of like the elite level, that's what they're wearing.
So it has a pretty high rise for it. Wow. Okay.
So, all right, CrossFitters, go buy another 3 pairs of shoes. So,
And those are expensive. They're
Yeah.
$50.
so these are running-based shoes. Like, that's really like what I think the macro level answer is here. It's a running-based shoe that you're going to wear, but there's different levels to that.
And then what do you wear here when you work out?
I like the Go Ruck ballistic trainers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have them in a shopping cart right now.
They are amazing.
I do.
They look good.
Yeah.
Why, thank you.
No, they do. I saw David H. like earlier this week, and he had them in.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, in the black red, and it looked
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. All right. If they look cool, get them. I have to ask my wife for permission, though, when I buy shoes because I buy them a lot.
I mean, I see you have a lot of different running shoes. You're
I
always
do.
wearing-
I do.
Like,
Well, I will say I have Achilles issues, and it is directly attributed to my big toe flexibility, Kayla, but also my footwear. Like when I coach 4 or 5 hours in a row in like nanos, I'm hurting after. Like I'm like limping around. And if I do double unders and running in certain shoes, I'm hurting for a couple days. But if I wear running shoes, I'm great. I feel fine. So I think there's something to that a lot of us don't have the answer to. And I think it's great to experiment with a couple of different ones. And you have as much credibility as anyone when it comes to what you think footwear should be. Yeah, so that's really cool. Now, kind of just wrapping up here, okay, could you envision CrossFit and Hyrox coming together at some point? I saw this idea floated out there when I was just doing some research a couple nights ago that Hyrox would be a really cool CrossFit Games event, meaning event 1 on Friday, Hyrox. And there's some sort of merger, not a merger, but some sort of relationship there. So I want to ask you from 2 angles. Just as an athlete, do you think that there's something there that would be really like? Would it be really cool to see Rich Froning take on Hyrox and just see what the time is, or do they think they should be separate? And is there any kind of banter? Because fitness, there's a lot of egos involved, right? Both on the athlete side and the athlete and the management side. You know, and CrossFit talks shade about that program, and then this program talks shade about CrossFit, and everyone's guilty of it. Everyone thinks what they do is best. Instead of going there, I'm looking at this I think there's an opportunity here to kind of do stuff together. Do you see it that way, or do you just think it's 2 separate things that, hey, go figure out your own training?
That's actually a really interesting question. I haven't put too much thought toward that, but kind of like what you're saying, like what if there was a Hyrox race in the CrossFit Games?
Right.
That like immediately brings to mind when they had the marathon row in the CrossFit Games. And from my understanding, like CrossFit Games, like if you win an event, it's just like that event. Like they're not weighted or anything.
Yep.
I think that'd be really interesting. I would love to see it, but I think the athletes would kind of like throw it away. Like, hey, this isn't worth it. Unless they're like, hey, I can win this one.
Right. I mean, they every year they do something endurance based. And I mean, one of the most amazing components to a CrossFit Games athlete is what they can do day after day. Like the recovery is just next level. And a Hyrox race, honestly, and I'm not talking shade on any Hyrox athlete. This is just how CrossFit Games athletes, competitors train. They could do Hyrox at 9 a.m. in the morning and then go do 2 more events in the afternoon. Like that's part of who they are and what they do.
Well, that is what they do.
Yeah, right. Like a marathon row, they've done 45 2-hour-minute bike rides and trail runs, and then they're doing a Roller Max deadlift right after. It's extreme fitness. So I wouldn't tie this to our members here. Like, hey, go do a Hyrox race and come in and WOD at night.
Well, I've done 2 Hyrox races in one day.
Have you really?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How'd you
and
do?
It's not that uncommon. So I got second in the first one, and I won the second one. So I did the Hyrox. This was at New York.
So you probably speak that language of like, yeah, throw it in as part of our training day, not as the training day.
Yeah, recover a little bit and sit down, and then get back in it.
Do you ever hear, is there competitive nature between Hyrox versus CrossFit? Like when I see a CrossFit Games athlete, Chrissy Ramo O'Connell showed up and she won, and I think she wiped the floor. And the CrossFit egotistical persons be like, see, like we could just come in and jog our way through it and kick your butt. Is there, which is absurd, because I've seen some of these athletes that are really high level Hyrox. I follow a few on Instagram now. They're legitimate beasts, like no question about it. And even watching you, like that's like a good little glimpse into what kind of caliber athlete is at the top of Hyrox. But do you hear any of that banter back and forth, like, oh, CrossFit's stupid, or CrossFit say, hey, Hyrox is a little too easy for us?
I don't see Hyrox people saying CrossFit is stupid. I think it's kind of like, oh, they're seen as different things. And
okay, that's awesome.
people are like, oh, no, that's not for me.
Right.
So
Yeah. If you had to say, who is Hyrox for, ideally, competitively or not, like just like, hey, I could get really into this and this could be my thing. Who is it for? Is it a personality trait or is it a physical skill set?
oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm gonna take the easy answer. It's like it's a combination of both. Like you gotta, like when you're not feeling good, your legs feel like lead. You want to be able to push and push harder and recover while you're running this, 7-minute pace mile
Wow.
for the 1K. But you also need to have the physical strength to be able to do that. So that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, it is. And I'm trying to think, Sam, agree with me, yes or no? I think the person CrossFit-wise that would do well in Hyrox is a person that wants to compete but doesn't feel either they have the time to touch on every single component of competitive CrossFit because there's so much that you have to practice, and or the person that feels like they keep getting hurt doing certain things. Ring muscle ups, pistols, squat snatch, all the mobility that's required. But they still have something, they still have some sort of drive that they really want to go for. I think that's the athlete that would do well with Hyrox training.
That is exactly who the founders wanted it. They took out what they felt were unsafe, risky movements.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to mix it up, though, and keep a wider range of functional stuff.
Yeah, makes them.
And if I was not, like, I don't want to say good, but if you take all the gymnastics out, if you take all the heavy lifts out, you have like maybe 2/3 of CrossFit and all of Hyrox right there.
Right.
And that works. Like that works for a lot of people.
Right.
And especially if you have the aerobic capacity, if you have a moderate to significant amount of strength associated with that aerobic capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty good mix. I mean, listen, if you have great aerobic capacity and you have moderate to higher, pretty good strength, like that's a good way of living your life.
Absolutely.
Like, you could take yourself longevity wise you could be very functional for a very long time if you have those two things. So I don't think CrossFit and Hyrox are separate. I think I am a snob. I'm sorry, personally, about CrossFit, just because but I don't poo-poo Hyrox at all. I think I would love to see more of our athletes get into Hyrox if they have the time, if they have the interest, if they have. I don't want to train 40-minute Metcons. I'm sorry, that's just not my life.
You have to like running too.
Right. I don't like running, but if my kids got into Hyrox, I'd be like, that's awesome. Yeah. Like that would be awesome for them. Like they do really.
Do they have kids stuff at all?
In Hyrox, no.
What's the youngest you think you've seen approximately? Like teenage, low 20s?
I think so. It might be like 18.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I wonder if that's in the works at all.
And listen, if we all started offering like Hyrox type training in addition to what we do, I would not be opposed to. I don't think that would dilute our message because Hyrox really is functional fitness. Mm-hmm. It is a slightly different sort of viewpoint of functional fitness, but by no means. I look at these movements, I look at what they're doing, and I'm like, this is a functional fitness competition at its core.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Alandra, last question. Where do you see / where do you want Hyrox to go into the future? Like what are some changes that you want to see, or where do you want to see this thing 5 to 10 years from now?
And where are you going to be with it?
Yeah. What's your goal?
Oh, well, there's a lot of questions all in one. So where do I see Hyrox going? I think it's going to get bigger and bigger in the U.S. Like we said, it's big in Europe, but it doesn't even touch how big it is here right now, and it's really starting to grow. So I think that's really exciting. What would I like to see Hyrox do? Kind of like you said, like what if we incorporated different age groups here, or made it more accessible to people that don't run or don't want to run? Like what could we do? There's another organization, branch off of Spartan called DECA, and they kind of answered that question. They cut out the run from their events, and it's a very similar race where there's stations and there's running between each one, and they have different amounts of running. So one of them has no running, and the other one has like a short run, and the other one has a 500-meter run. So I think that would be very interesting to incorporate into Hyrox, or if you could have younger age groups involved, or everything. The only thing is, like, logistically, running these races is extremely difficult. I don't necessarily know how they would do that. They'd have to be more multi-day events, and they're already selling out. So I don't know, like, if there's even large enough venues to accommodate all of that. or at least within one weekend.
Yeah. And your personal goals?
I would like to stay involved in Hyrox. I'm kind of excited by the doubles races and the relays and there's pros and cons for, traveling abroad to go to some of these races. But like you just said, your screen pull up, like there's some in Australia, like you can incorporate that into a trip. And I love going and like doing some fitness thing and then enjoying like vacation the next few days or seeing a place.
That's awesome.
I think that's really fun. And it's like makes traveling a little bit easier if you're like, I want to travel, but I don't know where to go. There you go.
Had to go there. Yeah. Yeah, we did that when I competed at the French Throwdown and we went on vacation in Italy after. Like it really was a cool thing. Like you go out there, a little bit of stress competing, but then something to look forward to after really does kind of enhance the experience a little bit.
Yeah, the other really good thing about Hyrox is you don't need a lot of equipment. You need your running shoes.
That's a good point.
And I like to tape my thumbs, but you don't need to bring like a triathlon bike. You don't need to bring your wetsuit. You don't need to bring like your lifters and all of your shoes for like CrossFit competitions, like all of this stuff. It's just like, I just really need my shoes, I guess, and then it'll be okay.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen someone wear a knee sleeve during this thing? Like when on the runs?
You might be the first.
Because I ran a 5K with knee sleeves on one time, like 8 years ago, and I get made fun of all the time, but it just made my knees feel better. A little bit of compression.
A little bit of extra resistance as you were running, making it harder for yourself. People definitely do
compression, all that stuff.
Tape themselves up and all that, but
cool.
You can fit a knee sleeve in a suitcase.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time on a weekend. I'm really glad we got to do this in person too. We did have it set up to do via satellite, but really thankful that you came in here. Really enjoy working with you now. You've been a great addition to the gym. Great athlete, awesome person to be around. I think that your intensity really does kind of feed into that class and pushes everyone else. So I'm really thankful for that as well. And I'm looking forward to what you are doing, both with CrossFit and Hyrox in the coming years.
Yeah, thanks. It's great being here.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.